Near the end of my time working on my recently released game, Void at the Heart, I only had a few things left to complete before all of the content was done. One of which was the game over sequence, something that I hadn't even remotely thought of up until this point. Meaning I had no real vision for how it should behave. Should I make a death animation? Should I make everything dramatically explode or something? Should I implement a results screen? I really had no idea. So for the time being, I removed the placeholder behavior of immediately going to the title screen, which meant that the player now had the ability to continue moving around after a game over. I then continued on to design the game's ending cutscene, and endured all of the fun that endeavor involved. When I eventually returned to the game over sequence, I realized that how I left it was actually very thematically appropriate for the game, being left on your own to continue moving around as you wish. It's not like your character is the one dying, and when the core you're protecting gets destroyed, you wouldn't expect it to do anything either. Additionally, by the player maintaining control, it emphasizes how your failure is completely your responsibility. Nothing was supposed to happen. There's no higher power to pull you out of this world and scold you. You must live with the consequences of your actions. Games truly are art. In all seriousness, I genuinely found this sequence to be very novel and interesting, and I felt that it had a lot of potential. It also certainly helps that it would probably be easier than making a more traditional game over sequence, so I was more than happy to lean further into the idea. The first thing I did was to make the core look more dead, so I made sure that it turned gray, most of its stats disappeared, and that the particles inside stopped moving. It definitely looks like every bit of life was drained from it. But I still wanted to take it a bit further, which is when I made one of the most important changes to the presentation of this sequence. Up until now, the music that plays during gameplay would never stop unless you paused, but I felt that it kind of spoiled the mood during a game over, so I had it begin to fade out as soon as the core dies. And wow, what an impact that makes. Just take a look. I don't think I've ever seen a game over that so suddenly kills the mood. And this isn't an easy game either. It's actually very difficult, so most of the time you'll probably be at the highest point of tension, only to have everything suddenly shut down. It feels really disappointing, but the flip side is that when you do eventually succeed, the feeling of relief and accomplishment are incredible. At this point, I was happy with how the sequence turned out, so I moved on to other things once again. One of those other things was a problem I wanted to resolve. The game has a few hidden or obscure mechanics that, while not necessary to understand, would certainly be useful to tell the player. I was thinking about different ways to present this information, but then I had the bright idea to add it to the game over sequence. It wouldn't be particularly intrusive there, and it would always be shown when people need it the most. The messages themselves could also act as reminders for ways that the player can adjust their strategy, with one explicitly saying, trying different strategies can sometimes lead to better results. Initially, I decided to make the messages random, but when I realized that it would actually be fairly common for certain messages to just not show up for some people, I decided to make them appear in a specific order, with the index stored in the save file. The game over sequence was now finally and truly complete. But while I previously liked it for its narrative significance, I discovered that it's actually very practical and pleasant gameplay-wise. You don't lose any control, so you don't feel abruptly restricted, and while you can immediately restart to try again, you can also just hang out and move around, destroying enemies at your leisure. So interestingly enough, what initially started out as the byproduct of me not having any game over sequence gradually evolved into one of the things I now find most endearing about my game. If you'd like to try and play the game yourself, you can do so by clicking the link in the video or its description, and if you'd like to keep up with new videos that I post, consider subscribing. Thanks for watching. Bye.